Listen, if I told you two techs working in the same company, driving the exact same route with the exact same customers, one could make $38,000 a year and the other could make $74,000 a year, what would you assume? Would you assume that the higher earner was just smarter, more experienced, or is he just lucky? Because listen, I've been in the industry for a long time and I have watched that exact same situation play out multiple different times, both as a route tech with the guy sitting next to me taking over a route and as a manager putting guys into routes. And so, listen, the answer is it has nothing to do with those things. So by the end of this short video here, here's what I want you to understand. I want you to be able to understand what drives the difference in income levels between individuals, especially in this industry, and what you can do to start making a change this week in your income, right? Listen, most people in pest control really don't have most people, whether they're in the industry or outside of the industry, have absolutely no idea how much money you can make in this industry. And a lot of guys in the industry don't know what the numbers are and how to work the numbers. So I hope that I can help you to understand that a little bit as we go through this. So listen, why does this conversation matter? And why is it that you have never had this conversation with your manager at your job? All right? Most companies do not explain actually how their pay structure works. They give you a brief overview. Sometimes it's in their handbook, and they'll give you some equations in there to kind of give you the outline of how the pay works. But at the end of the day, really all they're concerned with doing is handing you a paycheck. And most techs, that's all they're concerned with is getting a paycheck. Listen, most techs do not compare their paychecks. They don't share notes on how they can help each other to earn more money or assist a guy in making a little bit more money, or how it is that they have made the money that they've made in the industry. Sometimes because it feels awkward to have that conversation with a guy. And some of it's because we're highly competitive, right? We're very competitive individuals. We just want to be the best guy in our office. At least if you're looking to move up, that's what you're looking for. You want to be the best guy in your office. And so that's really what you're spending most of your time on. But most technicians have absolutely no way to benchmark themselves. They've got no target. They've got no plan for how they're going to get to that, to the paycheck that they wish they could earn. It's a pipe dream, right? They wish they could make the money that so-and-so on Route 2 is making, or whatever it is, right? And in their head, they think if they could just get Route 2, they'd make that money. When the reality is you could make that money on whatever route it is you're on if you just change the way that you think and change the way that you're operating on that route. Pest control is a very fast-growing industry. The U.S. pest market, numbers say, right, is on track probably to double over the course of the next decade. We are the next big thing. People just don't know it yet. That means more customers, more companies, and more opportunity to make money than ever before. But that's only going to matter to the people who understand how this business works, right? Everybody else is just going to get a paycheck out of it. So, listen, if you're a new technician, if this is like the first conversation you've ever had surrounding pest control and your paycheck, if you're a new technician, you should be having this conversation with your boss, right? Whoever your boss is, you should be having this conversation. So explain to me how my paycheck works. Explain to me how I can make more money, right? When you hired me, you probably got this speech when you got hired. The sky is the limit. There's no cap on how much money you can make. Well, if there isn't, then show me how to make more money. I used to have this conversation with one of my managers, actually when I was a manager, and we would talk about profit margins and stuff, and we would have the conversation about, well, you just need to produce more profit. You need to reduce your outgo. And I would say, well, here's my numbers. Show me where I'm bleeding. Show me where I'm spending too much money. Well, if I do that for you, what do I need you for? Which is one of the most retarded things, in my opinion, that a manager can say to you, is that statement. He needs you because he can't be in that office doing it. He should be better than you. He should know those numbers, and he should know exactly how to tell you how to hit those numbers to help you hit your numbers, because you hitting your numbers helps him hit his numbers. But the reality is most guys have no idea how the money in this industry works. And listen, I've struggled through this thing of figuring out how this money works, and I'm not an expert. I'm not sitting here claiming to be an expert, but I understand it better than a lot of guys understand it. So let me give you basically the 4 ways that pest control companies pay their employees. First of all, there's the hourly. Most companies in California do that now because of a bunch of class action lawsuits and stuff like that. So most companies, well, especially when you start, if you start off, you're always going to start off as an hourly guy. Hourly is very predictable, but it's got a very low ceiling on it, right? Because really all you're doing on an hourly paycheck is you're trading your time for money. There's no upside to it. It's a straight across trade. Whatever they're willing to pay you, you're giving them an hour of your life for that money, right? Think about all the days that you have given to a company on an hourly paycheck, and it gets pretty crazy, right? So I don't think that hourly makes the most sense, but hourly does make sense when you're learning how to do the job, because you're not very productive, and companies have to get you to where you are productive. And so the company can control your route volume. If you're a company if you're a guy who is in business for yourself, you're really desperately wanting to control the route volume, the best way to do that is going to be hourly. Because you can't do that with a production-based model, because guys are going to want more production. And so if you want to control the quality by controlling the route size, then the best way to do that is going to be just to pay a guy hourly, which means you're going to have to pay a guy more and more hourly in order to make what a production guy is making, in order to keep him at your company. So it's a tough tightrope. Hourly is a tough tightrope to play with, right? There's a lot of risks in the hourly model. Now there's upside to it, but there's a lot of risks in it. It's very comfortable, but it's got, like I said, it's got a very low ceiling. And so it's really easy for a guy to get in, get comfortable, settle in, and that's as far as he ever goes. And some companies are perfectly happy with this model. They really don't care whether guys are trying to grow, become better technicians, become better at their job, trying to increase their paycheck. They really don't care. They just want the guy to go out, spray some stuff on a house, fill out his paperwork, turn it in so they can charge the customer, so they can give that guy a check and they can take their profit at the end of the day. A lot of companies that are like that. If you're an owner, that's not the best model. If you're a technician, it's not the best model for you either. It's not where you're going to make the most money. If all you care about is, well, I just want to get a paycheck, I don't have to make a whole bunch of money, I live in my mom's basement or whatever, maybe it's a good model for you. But otherwise, it's not going to be a good model. I can tell you this: you're not going to support a family on an hourly paycheck from pest control, for sure. So, and I'm sure somebody out there is going to say something in the comments about how they're doing it on an hourly paycheck. But if you are, you're not doing right by your family, in my opinion. So the second way that companies tend to pay is the production-based model. This model's been around for a very, very long time. This is how I got into the industry. When I got into the industry, you started off, I think it was at $1,200 was your base. And that number, $1,200, represented you doing, I want to say it was $8,000 in production. Once you got past the $8,000 in production, then you started to make 20 to 25% of your production on top of that. I started off in the industry a long time ago with the big name that shall not be mentioned, which starts with a T, and everybody knows who it is. But that's who I started off with. Used to be able to make 25% with them. I think that you can only make 20% of your production now with them, and obviously numbers have changed over time. But in this model, most companies are going to cap you out at about 25%. There's probably some mom and pops out there that'll get you up to 35%, but most companies are going to cap you at about 25% of your production. And basically the way that this number works is give you some round figures, right? You do, if you're running $12,000 in production for them and they pay you 25% of that production, right? You divide 12,000 by 4, you're going to get, right, 3 grand. 3 times 4 is 12, pretty easy math, right? You're going to get 3 grand. That's the way that that model works. In most of those models, obviously, that's a pretty low model. I think most companies are somewhere in the neighborhood of probably 15, 16,000 before you start making production numbers. Now, because of the hourly, most companies are paying you somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 to 30 hourly. And so there's big upside though to this model, right? If you're a good technician and you really want to make money, you can make really good money with this model. In fact, most guys that are under this model are making more than their managers are making. That, and by the way, they should be, right? Not because their managers don't deserve as much, but because their managers should be making more money. But that has nothing to do with the way that this guy is making money down here, right? So, but the upside to this is, as your route grows and you add services on, you get an increase, a pay increase every time, right? It's just automatic. You don't have to have an end-of-year review where they decide whether they want to pay you more or anything like that. As you grow your route, your paycheck grows. And if you don't grow your route, your paycheck doesn't grow. And so you've got a lot of control in this model. And so obviously the downside is if your route shrinks, customers cancel, then your income's going to cancel, right? Your income's going to take a nosedive. So if you've got big accounts on your route, I ran a branch that was mostly commercial when I was a manager. If a guy lost a big account, that could have he could take a massive pay cut by losing a big account. So it does have its downsides, but I think the upside outweighs the downside in this model, and that's where you're going to want to focus on communicating with people. And I'm probably going to put out eventually some things on communication skills, being able to communicate properly with your customers. You're going to want to concentrate on the quality of the service that you're providing to your customers, because those things are going to directly translate into dollars for you, right? Then there is basically, right, the way that all sales guys in our industry are paid is commission. I think I know anybody that's paying their sales guys any other way but commission. This is usually done by pure commission or partial commission. The partial commission model runs very similar to the production model that we just discussed. And so those guys are getting paid on new sales, upsells, their new service agreements, all that kind of stuff. They're making their commission off of that. In our industry, most sales guys, SMP guys, right, the summer marketing program guys, the teenagers that go out and knock on your door, those guys are making god-awful money. They're making like 25% of those agreements. But most, if you're going to just be a regular salesman for a company, most of them are going to keep you right in that 15% of the annual value of the contract that you sell, for the most part. So that's kind of where the commission model kind of lands. This model is almost exclusive to the sales section. Technicians do kind of fall in this, in that as a technician, if you sell people, you can still make commission. Most of the commissions for most technicians going to be a little bit lower than the commission for the sales guy is going to be. They're going to keep it a little bit lower than that. But obviously this model has the best upside as far as income growth. Doesn't require a whole bunch of skill as far as being able to get rid of people's pests. Just takes, but it does require a very, very good set of communication skills. You really have to be able to communicate with people. You got to be able to not pressure people, but you got to be able to get people to feel the urgency of purchasing from you without them feeling like you're being pushy. It's a tough skill set. It's a skill set that I'm not great at, but it's a great skill set if you can do it. And so technicians who cash in on the commission side of things obviously are going to increase their paychecks also exponentially, right? By consistently closing on, most companies will pay you to turn in termite leads, mosquito upsells, rodent exclusion work, all that stuff. If you're making upsells on those things. You're going to make commission off of those things, which is going to add, then you're going to have the commission, the production, and the hourly or your base rate, base salary, however you want to say it. You're going to have all three of those income streams. And so, right, to be effective, you're going to want to cash in on all three of those income streams. And then for managers, there is, most of the time, it's kind of a hybrid of salary plus bonus. And so for branch managers, even for most service managers, there's some form of this that takes place. Base salary provides you with the stability, the bonus or the profit share type situation. A lot of companies will offer you profit share as well. At the end of the year, you can cash in on things like that by investing in the company. It provides you an unlimited growth ceiling, right? It's going to be a little bit more limited than the commission sales guys is going to be, because it's going to move. I wouldn't say it's necessarily not as high a ceiling. It's just the ceiling's it's going to be tougher to get to the ceiling on it, right? It's going to take more time to build income that way. And so you really, if you're going to take the step into being a manager for a company, you really need to know what their numbers are. You need to know how they pay. This is a mistake I made in moving up and becoming a manager in a company that I was a part of. This is one of the mistakes that I made, not knowing what they were going to pay me. I just, in my head, I assumed that it was going to be X number, and I shouldn't have done that. I should have made them give it to me in hard numbers. I probably wouldn't have taken the position based on the hard numbers, because I could make close to that as a route technician with a lot less stress, less drive time, less everything. The only advantage to becoming a manager was I got to take the car home, and I got my health insurance covered. That was literally the only bonus to becoming a manager. Looking back, I learned a lot of stuff by being a manager for that company, things that I wouldn't trade, but I don't know that given the situation to repeat, that I would repeat it in the same way. And so something you want to be aware of. Know what their structure is, know how the bonuses are structured, know who's structuring the bonuses, and make sure that it makes sense for you, that it makes sense for your family, that it makes sense for your future to take that step and move up. Right? So I'll give you just a quick example. So in my situation, I was a technician. Was a very good technician and made very decent money as a technician, and didn't have to kill myself. I've had a knack for pest control. So I was a good technician, did very well as a technician. I became an assistant manager in a big branch, and that meant good money because of the structure. The structure was salary plus 1% of the production for the month, and so of the production for the branch, right? As the manager, if you had a branch 2 and 3, you got 1% of both the termite as well as the pest control. And so I made very good money that way. Well, then I was out of the industry for a while, came back into the industry, and moved right back up into becoming an assistant manager. But on my way through that time, I went to a much smaller branch. The pay was very different, but I accepted it because I was moving straight through it to become a manager, because I had my eyes on being a manager and thought to myself, that's where the money's at. If I can get to being a manager, I can make some decent money. I was mistaken. It was good. It was better money than being an assistant manager, but it wasn't necessarily better money than being a technician. And so you had this technician, assistant manager, manager, right? These two were pretty much even, and then regional manager went up a little bit more than that. And I was kind of, not saying that I would have been the next regional manager, but I was in line to try to become a regional manager with that company, and would have got a little bit more money by doing that. And obviously I did this instead. But it's important to keep those things in mind, right? That if you're going to move right through being an assistant manager, you may, right, be able to shoot your shot and make it to the other side before you run out of money. But know what you're doing, right? Know what your numbers are. Know how the company you're moving up in. Know exactly how they pay their people. Know exactly how that breaks down. Know exactly what the guy's paycheck before you looked like. Right? Obviously, they can't show you that guy's paycheck, but they can tell you, right? Like, hey, this is how we pay, And this is what this branch has historically done, and so this is what it would look like. And that's what they should do. And so never accept a position for a bonus, because the bonus should be a bonus. Your paycheck should be your paycheck. Never base your annual income on the bonus, because if you don't hit the bonus, you didn't make your annual income, and now, right, you're head over heels, and it could be very bad for your financial situation, could be bad for your family. Financial problems are the biggest reason that people end up with familial problems, right? So you don't want to end up in that situation. So, right, anyway, so you want to understand the pay structure wherever you're at, so that you can, A, improve your income, B, you can make wise decisions about moving forward and moving up and moving towards your goal within the company that you're in. Or you may realize, this is not the company for me to move up in. I need to get into a company that's got a different pay structure. And most of the time, if you're a technician for any amount of time, you'll know somebody in another branch, another company, that'll be able to give you the breakdown on the way that they pay, and you can make good decisions by doing that, right? Most technicians are just focused on getting a raise. But the problem is they just don't understand the pay structure. There's no raise coming. You've got to get your raise yourself, right? By going out, and that raise comes in the form of new customers, building your route, right? Adding route value. So there's some, right? Give you some realistic things, right? If you are at 0 to 2 years in this industry, you're probably still sitting in the hourly rate, right? You're learning. You've got very limited control over your route and your schedule and things like that. You're at the bottom end of the industry, and so you're probably not making the money that you really want to make, right? And so the goal in that stage is not going to be maximize your income, right? Work your hours, work them hard, but use those hours to learn and to build your skill set, so that when you take that next step into being an experienced technician, that you can apply that skill set to making you more money, right? Track exactly how you do each type of service: bed bugs, German roaches, bees, whatever it is. Track how you're doing those services. Track the skills necessary to accomplish those things, how to find those things, what is being said to those people, so that you know how to sell that kind of stuff. You need to track that kind of stuff, right? Listen to customers talk. Listen to other people talking to customers. Pay attention to how they're talking to customers. Sit in the tech room while guys are making their phone calls at the end of the day. Listen to what they're saying. Listen to who's saying what. Listen to who has good reactions from their customers, who has bad reactions, and learn the lingo, the things that they're saying in order to do that. Listen to how pricing is explained to the customers. Listen to how the pricing is put together, so that when you reach that next level and you can start making some commission and making some production, you know how to structure things. Here's one of the things that's always been a pet peeve of mine my entire time in the industry, is guys will sit at their desk and complain about the sales that the sales guy made for them, and how the guy didn't sell it for enough, he doesn't know what he's selling, and all this other stuff. Well, then go sell something that is enough. You've got the skill set, you know how to do it, you know 10 times as much as the sales guys does. Go out there and sell something that's worth the money, worth your time, worth your money. So then, the next kind of step from there would be, right, that 2 to 6 year period. In that period of time, you're probably going to be making some form of production, whether that's salary plus production, or whether that is hourly plus production. You're going to be working in that area, somewhat. And so the gap between guys' paychecks in the 2 to 6 year range is going to be colossal, right? It's going to be massive. You're going to find guys that are making no money. You're going to find guys that are making crazy money in that area. And so all of that is driven by their ability to communicate and their ability to sell and upsell their customers, right? That's how you're going to make money there. So, and listen, what's going to separate the guys at the bottom of that tier from the guys at the top of that tier is really going to be, some guys know how to price things. They know how to have the conversation with their customers around price. They know the lingo, all that kind of stuff, right? They know how to present it to customers in such a way that customers feel like they're buying something and not like they're being sold something. And so they know the right questions to ask. Every stop that they go to, they're looking for something, right? They know the questions to ask in order to get the outcome that they're looking for. And so they're out there and they are building real relationships with their customers, right? And so you want to pay attention to the way those guys are making their money, right? And so, listen, this is the story that I started off with, right? Same route, same stops. One technician is producing significantly more than the other guy, and that's why there's this big gap in their paycheck. All right, and so you want to pay attention to that guy that's making that money, right? Here's what you're going to find. You're going to find there's some guys that are really making a lot of money, but they only last for about 6 to 8 months, and that's because they're liars, cheats, and thieves, right? So pay attention to the guy that's been in the office for a long time. He's making really, really good money. He's not killing himself. And you can tell that, hey, you know what, this guy knows what he's doing. He's got a good head on his shoulders. He likes this work, and he wants to do the best thing for his customer and the best thing for the company. Pay attention to that guy. He's gonna steer you in the right direction, right? Then there's whether you want to call this the lead. Some companies call these guys lead techs. Some companies call them assistant managers, and some companies have both of those. They're two kind of interim roles. You're going to get most of the time you're going to get a bump in your hourly or in your salary here, but you're going to take a hit in production. And so you want to make sure that you can balance those two things out. At the very least, that you're not making less money than you were making as a technician, right? But here you're going to take on massive responsibilities, right? You're going to start training other technicians. You're going to be out in the field handling difficult situations that customers are having. You're going to be doing quality checkups for, right, making sure that your guys are doing what they say that they're doing and that they're doing the right job when they're out there. And so this role often doesn't pay quite as much as a technician role and not quite as much as a manager role, but you're kind of back in that 0 to 2 years, right, where this is the time to learn. Right? If you're going to sit in this role, then learn something, man. Don't waste your time. Don't waste your money. Right? Settle in. Really dial yourself in. Listen to the way that people are being talked to, whether it is in a good way or a bad way. Sometimes you can learn a lot from a bad manager about what not to do. Listen to the way that he communicates with the technicians. Make determinations as to, is that the right way to communicate with the technician, the wrong way to communicate with the technician. Watch how different technicians respond to different things that the manager is saying or different actions that the company is taking. Pay attention to all that stuff to help you to be able to manage well when you get that opportunity, right? So this is an opportunity to learn. And so listen, a lot of techs skip this step and jump right into being an owner, and there's not a problem with that, so please don't take it that way. Not a problem with that, but I will say that there are some advantages to being a manager before you take the leap into being owning your own company. And so give it some thought, right? Play the long game. Make sure that you're setting yourself up for success. Looking back, I would say I just should have started sooner because this is, right, my humble brag, right? But every company that I've worked in, other than when I very first started with Terminex, it took me a little while there. But every company that I've worked at, really, I've moved up relatively quickly into lead technician, route supervisors, assistant manager. I've moved up just relatively quickly. I'm pretty conscientious. I pay close attention to things people say, the way that people act. I communicate relatively well with people, those type of things. It's helped me to move up, obviously. And so I've learned a lot of stuff over that period of time. And so there is some advantage to being a branch manager, or what some companies would call an operations manager, right? This structure, when you get to that, right, obviously you're going to be making salary plus bonus almost exclusively as a manager. You'll be making salary plus bonus. But you're going to be responsible for a lot more stuff. You're going to be responsible for the profitability of the routes in your branch. You're going to be responsible for the performance of the individuals that are working for you. You're going to be responsible for customer retention. And you're going to be responsible for hiring new people and hiring the right new people. So there's a lot of responsibility you're going to take on, but all of these things are positive if you're going to become if you're going to own your own company. It's a good place to get some experience and make some mistakes, right, while somebody else is paying your paycheck. And so this is going to be the first role, though, where your income is going to be almost entirely tied to the behavior and the production of others. You're going to have absolutely no control except for how you manage. If you manage well, those people will respond well. They're going to do what they can to be productive, and that's going to help you to be successful. But this is going to be the first role where your hands are out of the money completely. It's not based on how many hours you work. It is not based on how many sales you make. It's going to be based solely on how the guys around you are working. And so it's a big deal to become a manager. It is a difficult thing. And so it's a completely different skill set than running your own route. It's a completely different skill set, and it's a necessary one to learn if you're going to really move on. I mean, if you want to be a good company owner, eventually one day, I think that you're going to want to fulfill this role, right? And then then there's going to be you're going to move up to owning your own company. This comes with a real roller coaster for paychecks, at least for the first little while. I tell every guy that I talk to about starting his own company the same thing, and that is this: it is going to suck for the first little while. There is no way around it. It's just going to suck. Eventually, it's going to get better. Every day is going to get a little better than the day before, and eventually, you're going to be happy you did it, but you will not be happy in the first few months. Right? There's a lot of variability in this, right, when you start your own company. And so, but your income is going to be tied directly to how many customers you're selling, how many you're retaining, and how you price those customers and how efficiently you run your company, right? How efficiently you route things. All of that's going to really matter at this point. And so that's why being a manager sometimes is helpful to you. And so a lot of times, most of the time, first-time owners, when you start your company, you're probably going to make less the first year than you did as an employee, and that's pretty normal. But you should have a survivability plan for that, right? So it doesn't mean that you need to have 5 years in the bank or anything like that. And maybe, right, I'm not saying that that's not a good plan, right? I'm just saying that sometimes that's the thing that will stop guys from actually starting their own thing, is they will constantly point to their bank account and say, I'll never make it because I can't save up enough money. At some point, you're going to have to just sink or swim, right? Or as other people put it, right, jump and build your wings on the way down. So you're going to have to make some decisions there. The upside of ownership is not going to be income, at least not immediately, right? But it's got a compounding nature, right? It's kind of like getting a train going. If you've ever seen a train get going, those little metal wheels, man, they spin on that track, but they're building momentum. And once the momentum gets going, it's hard to stop, right? And it's the same thing with owning your own company. Once the momentum gets going, you're going to be making money. It's going to keep coming, right? And it's going to be hard to stop. And so eventually you're going to get to the place where you can hire your first technician, right? And that's when, right, you're going to be able to start leveraging things and go from being a solo owner operator into being, right, buying a truck and training a guy and putting him into a truck, which is a very scary thing. Done it twice now. It's a very scary thing. And so, right, when you get to that point, you're going to have to build some systems. You're going to have to build systems that are repeatable by other individuals other than you, and you're going to have to manage those people well and make sure that they are working the system that you've put in place. And you're going to be constantly tweaking the system in order to make sure that it's running properly. But eventually, right, the goal of this is to not be doing the services yourself. And so the moment that you can finally get to the point where you can stop being the best tech on your team as an owner is going to be the moment when you get to become the best leader that you can be and make your company into something that will carry your legacy for you, right? And obviously that's what I'm working towards as well. So not there yet, but I am working towards that, right? And so listen, here's what moves you through these ranges, right? There's a few different things that can move you through these, but I'm going to just give you 5 things to think about, right? Number 1 is this, your ability to communicate, especially with customers at the door. The biggest difference in income between technicians is what happens when they're in front of the customer at the customer's house. Me and my buddy were just talking about this today, made this mistake. It's been years ago now, but I treated a lady's house. She lives on a lake, in a private community on a lake. And got done treating. I was walking back out to my truck, and she said something to me about whether I had treated down by, they had like a boat dock, whether I treated down by the water, and I said yes. And she said, well, there was a lot of spider webs there since last month. And I said, yeah, I de-webbed it and I treated it. And then I made this comment. I said, you know, it's the price of living at the lake, right? And I laughed about it and said goodbye and got in my truck and drove away. She called me about 15, 20 minutes later and she was hot. Probably just having a bad day. That would be my guess, was that she was just having a bad day. But right, I got a little too comfortable, right, in the situation and did not do a good job of communicating my concern about her concern, all right? And so, listen, you need to be a good communicator. Your paycheck is tied to your ability to communicate. At every level, it's going to be tied to your ability to communicate. Sometimes it's going to be with the customer at the door, and sometimes it's going to be with technicians in your office, and sometimes it's going to be with the boss that is in charge of you. But your paycheck's going to be tied to your ability to communicate. So learn to communicate well. Ask customers what they have seen since your last visit. Allow them to tell you what they've seen, and then tell them what you're going to do about it, and make recommendations, if any, that they can do to help prevent it as well. All right? That's what you need to do. The number of technicians that I have watched over my course of time in this industry, that their greatest desire is just not to talk to a customer. Right? So the customer says, well, you know, I've been seeing spiders, and they shut down, right? In their head, they're like, yeah, of course you've been seeing spiders. It's summertime and it's 110 degrees out. Of course you're seeing spiders, right? And listen, that's not helpful. It's not helpful for your mind to think that way. It's not helpful for your customer. It's not helpful for the customer service. It's not going to be helpful for your customer retention. Eventually, you're going to lose that customer, right? Get your head in the game. So communicate well. Listen, you don't have to pressure people into sales. You don't have to be the go-to, right? The bug guru, right? Or anything like that. You just have to know how to communicate well. Do it professionally. Listen, when you go see the doctor, right? You can tell the doctor what all your symptoms are. He's not treating your symptoms. He's treating what's causing your symptoms. And so a lot of times your customer is telling you what the symptoms are, and you need to explain to them, yes, all of those things are true. Here's what the underlying issue is, and this is what I'm going to resolve, which is going to resolve all these symptoms. So give it a chance to work, and it will work. Customers will understand that, but when you're right, they say, well, I've been seeing spiders, I saw this, I saw that, and you say, well, you know, I'm just going to, listen, I know what I'm doing, just let me do my job, right? You're not being helpful. And I know you'd probably never actually say those words to a customer, but that attitude comes across to the customer very often in the way that we speak to them. So be careful, right? The other one is this, right? Get used to being uncomfortable upselling people. You want to know how salespeople make money? They're really comfortable being uncomfortable. That's how. It's never easy to ask for money. It's never going to be comfortable for you to ask for money. It's never been comfortable in the history of man to ask for money. But the more comfortable you get with asking for money, other than for con men, obviously, but the more comfortable you get with asking for upsells, the more money you're going to make, right? So, listen, you realize that if you sold just one additional thing per week, you would increase your income at the very minimum at most companies. You would increase your income from somewhere right around $50. If you sold one of those a day, you'd increase your income over the course of a week by $250. The only way to do that is keep loading the wagon, right? You got to keep putting stuff in the funnel. If you want anything to come out the other side of the funnel, you got to keep putting stuff in the funnel. So you got to constantly be talking to people about what you can do to help them achieve their pest goal, whatever that pest goal might be. And so listen, walk through, it's pretty simple math, right? You don't have to overprice things. You don't have to sell people stuff that they don't need. Just be straight up with people. Explain to them what you can do to help them out, and right, let them make their own decisions. I'm very clear when I sell people mosquito buckets. I'm not a big proponent for mosquito buckets, but I'm very clear when I sell people mosquito buckets. Listen, some people say these things took care of all their problems. Some people say they hardly noticed any difference at all. But if your concern is mosquitoes, you might want to give this a try, and let's see what happens. Right? And so just be clear about it. All that I'm asking you to do is keep your eyes open when you're treating somebody's house. Look for what it is that you could do for them that you aren't presently doing for them because it is not presently covered by their service. Termites, right? If whatever it is, right? Termites or rodent exclusion work, or bees are a big one that guys will just walk right past, right? All of these things that you could be doing for them that you've got no interest in doing for them because all you care about is getting there, getting sprayed, getting out onto the next house. Right? Listen, it's going to be 100 degrees at the next house too. You may as well sell something at this one, right? Focus on reducing, right, callbacks or trouble calls, right? One of the most costly things for a technician and for companies now that techs are paid hourly is the trouble calls. When I first started in the industry, you didn't get paid for trouble calls, right? You went back for free because you were getting paid virtually all production. You weren't getting any hourly paycheck really whatsoever. Now that hourly is a thing, and that's one of the reasons that hourly is a thing, because guys complained about it. Obviously bad technicians, but guys complained about not making money when they were sent back to do trouble calls. I'd do trouble calls for other guys even, right? And so listen, the technician that can reduce his callbacks and his trouble calls is automatically going to make more money. He's got more time to be out there selling. He's got more time to be doing, to adding on service. He's got more time to be out there, right, doing things for his customers, communicating with his customers, and that kind of stuff. All of that stuff translates into more money. Callbacks don't translate into more money, right? They can be a positive in that it's your opportunity to be the hero, right? Show up with a good attitude, do the job, fix the problem. But you want to reduce the callbacks, right? For one thing, at the end of the day, callbacks are a tax on your reputation. Every time that a customer has to call you back to fix something, you're chipping away at their trust in you. And so you don't want to do that. So be careful about that, right? And then focus on your customer retention. Really dial in on customer retention. What is it you can do to keep a customer from canceling, right? Sometimes that is something as simple as making sure that every time that you're there that you ask for their payment. Customers who go high balance, cancel, right? Focus on, hey, right? Hey, service is complete. Are you going to be giving me a check today, cash, or are you paying with card? Are you going to be calling into the office, whatever it is, right? That simple kind of stuff, man, makes a massive difference in customer retention. Obviously, talking to your customers makes a massive difference. People cancel service companies all the time. People don't cancel their friend all the time, right? Not that they'll never cancel on you, right? Not that you're going to be their best friend or anything like that. But you should, right? It should feel like you guys have a congenial relationship, right? Which means noticing stuff. All right, I said something about this in the last video, but right, like something as simple as a banner out in front of somebody's house that says that their child just got accepted to a college, right? That's a connection point, right? If you're young and you're in college, hey, you just got out of college. I just graduated from such and such a college, right? Or whatever it might be. If you are old like me, right? You got kids that have gone through college, then, right? Hey, that's great. Right, I've got 3 kids that have already gone through college. I got one in college now. right? That's awesome that your kid, right, got accepted to such and such a college. And so all of those little types of connection points, right? A soccer ball in the backyard that tells you, hey, you know what, their kid is playing soccer. Hey, your kid playing league, or right? Are they playing for their school, or like all that stuff is connection points, and that give you the ability to retain that customer and keep them on as your customer, right? So customers should like you. They really should like you, and you should be likable. You should be a likable person. And I know that sounds really, really obvious, but it's amazing that you'd have to say that to pest control technicians. The number of pest control technicians I've known over the course of my time in this industry that are just unlikable people is exceptionally high, right? And so you should be a likable person. Catch their problems before they have to bring them to your attention, right? Keep your route growing so that it doesn't shrink, right? Though all of that stuff matters, right? And then ask for more, right? Ask for more from your boss. Ask, right? Even if the more doesn't have a dollar attached to it, even if the more is just a responsibility that will help you to be recognized as somebody who is willing to go above and beyond and puts you in line to become the next assistant manager, the next manager, right? Ask for more. Guys who are ready to be promoted aren't pushy about it, but they're available, right? They're there. They're always there. They're always in the mix. They're always in the middle of whatever is happening. They're there to help, right? That's what makes somebody promotable, right? And so you should be having conversations. We talked about this last week, but you should be having conversations with whoever your boss is. Listen, right? Here's what I've been doing. If you were in my shoes, what would you do to grow your route? To add a customer, what would you do, right? And then execute on what they say, right? Do what they say, right? And listen, owners as well as managers in big companies, they are always going to give the job to the guy that says yes, always. And so sometimes you think you're the best technician in the office, but you're always the no guy. And that guy sucks, but he's always the yes guy. And then you go, well, I don't know why they promoted that guy. Because he's the yes guy. Why do you think they promoted him? You're always the no guy. You're always too busy to do anything. Right? You don't want to be the no guy. So, listen, here's what keeps your income, right, flat, or keeps your income from growing, maybe is a better way of putting it, is the comfort zone. The comfort zone is always going to be your worst enemy. You're making enough to get by. That's probably the most expensive sentence in the history of mankind. I'm making enough to get by. Who in the world wants to make enough to get by? Like, that's wild. Listen, I'm a Christian, and I believe in laying my treasures up in heaven. Right? But I don't want to make just enough to get by. I want to make enough to do right by my family, do better for my family. I don't want my kids, right? I don't want my kids to grow up, right, in the same financial condition that I grew up in. And by the way, I don't want my children's children to grow up in the same financial condition that my children grew up in. I want my kids to do better too. Like, who wants to just get by? Nobody wants to just get by, right? Getting by is not a strategy. It's certainly not a strategy for growth, right? Getting by is a slippery slope. It's just a matter of time before you're at the bottom of it, right? So the comfort zone is the most dangerous place in the world. And listen, the second thing that I think is a trap is never changing your mindset, always just being a tech in your mind. There's a lot of people that get promoted, right? Become assistant managers or become managers, but they never get out of the technician mindset. This was a problem at the company that I managed at. This was one of the problems that I had at the company that I managed at, was talking to other managers and realizing this guy is nothing but a glorified tech. They stamped manager on his business card, right, and gave him the keys to a car, but this guy's not a manager. He's a technician, right, with a set of keys to the office. Like, this guy's not managing. Right? So you've got to change your mindset, whether that means reading books, whether that means taking courses, right? Whether that means going back to college at night, whatever that means for you, you've got to be better. You can't stay a technician in your mind and continue to grow and become better. Your income growth is going to be tied to your to the growth, your personal growth. Right? If you don't have a plan for your own personal growth, that should be the first thing you do, right? I'm going to give you some suggestions at the end of this, but none of those suggestions at the end of this should trump this suggestion, and that is sit down now and write down a plan for your personal growth. How am I going to get from point A to point B? How can I change? What are the books I need to read, right? Who are the people that I need to get around? What is the course I need to purchase? What is, the class I need to take? What do I need to do to get better? Right? Your income is directly tied to your personal growth, right? The other thing I think is a trap is avoiding having hard conversations about money, whether that is with customers or whether that is with the company that you work at. Quit avoiding hard conversations about money. Listen, you are trading your life for $1. So you better make sure you're getting what your life is worth. I've said this in past podcasts. I'll say it again in this one. The reason I started my own company was we were at an annual managers meeting at the company that I worked for, and one of the top dogs in the company that I worked for, one of the owners of the company, said, "We've always felt like your paycheck was your performance evaluation." Crazy thing to say to somebody who felt very undervalued. And I was like, maybe he's right. Maybe I am only worth, I think at that time I was making like $6,000, maybe $6,500 a month. Maybe that's all I'm worth, but I am going to go find out. That's all I know. And so listen, quit avoiding hard conversations. Most technicians never ask for more money. And most technicians don't ask for more money because they don't understand the way that the pay structure works to begin with. And so when they do ask anything about a raise, their boss just gaslights them into believing that, right, there's nothing they can do, when the reality is, yes, there is. There most certainly is, right? Most technicians never know the metric by which they could reach the goal, the financial goal that they're shooting for. They don't know how to work those numbers out. Figure it out. I don't know what the pay structure at the company you're working for is, but figure it out, right? And listen, if you don't ask, the answer is always no, right? You are depending on somebody else to recognize you out of, in some cases, thousands of other employees. You're asking them to recognize you out of and give you a raise. That's wild stuff, right? Stand up and say, me, right? It's what you got to do. Get selfish. Right? Let everybody call you greedy. Let everybody call you the greasy wheel. Let everybody call you whatever. When you walk out of there with more money on your paycheck, are you really going to care that they called you a greasy wheel? I doubt it, right? And then the other trap that I think applies mostly to owners is this: we undercharge. We try to charge the same prices that the big box companies are charging. Yeah, when they're sending out some 18-year-old kid. You're not 18 years old. You don't have the same overhead that they have. You don't have the same volume that they have. You can't charge the same prices that they charge. Right? I get undercut all the time by guys, and eventually, listen, those guys will be out of business. I guarantee it. It can't, listen, the big companies are not growing by way of sales. We all know this. Right? All the big name companies, the big T, right? The big O, that's owned by the big R, right? They're not growing by way of sales. We all know how they're growing. They're all growing by acquisition. They're relying on guys like me to go out and build a company that they can buy. They're not growing by sales. They're growing by acquisition. What are they acquiring? They're acquiring the properly charged customers that somebody like me has built. Right? So you should probably think about that as an owner, right? So listen, in the next part of this series, we're going to cover pricing in a little bit more detail and hopefully avoid the trap of using low prices in order to try to build your volume. And so real quick, let me give you All right, let's add to that 90-day plan. I started a 90-day plan with you last week. Let's add to it, right? So if you're a route tech, you need to write down how your pay is structured. Find it in your employee handbook, talk to your boss, talk to whoever it is in your office that knows. Go ask somebody, find it, figure it out. Then start tracking your production, start tracking your trouble calls, right? And start tracking how many extra services, right? The add-on services, upsells that you're doing over the next 90 days, right? At the end of 30 days, you're going to be able to calculate like what, right? What would one more service per day add to my paycheck? Right? And then you can use that number as a baseline to motivate you to move forward and do more. If you are an assistant manager or a lead technician or right, route supervisor, whatever it is, right, your income ceiling is going to be tied directly to the output of your team and not just yourself, right? So what you need to do is you need to identify the person on the team, right, the guy in the back room that is the closest to taking the next step, to leveling up his game, to making more sales, to increasing his customer count, right? The guy that is on track. And then spend 15 minutes, right, a week investing in that guy. Sitting down, talking to him, going over how that guy can make more money, building him up, pushing him forward, right? Motivating that guy. Right? Listen, that is what managers do. Right? That is what they do. And so, and if you're sitting out there, you're thinking about starting your own company, right? Your income in your first year is honestly probably going to be less than the income you're making right now. So plan for it. And then, right, set yourself a goal for that first year. And make customer retention your big goal, and right, selling those reoccurring treatments, right? But set yourself a goal for what you want to do in that first year, right? We're going to cover some things in part 5 of this series that I think will help you to build the proper foundations when we get there, right? So, but listen, let's just recap real quick, right? You need to understand your pay structure before you try to improve anything. You can't improve your income unless you understand how you're getting paid. The gap between the low earner and the high earner is almost always the communication skill, not the skill set, right? It's not the treatment or the individual's behaviors. It's his ability to communicate, right? And listen, every one of every role has a ceiling on it, right? And so to get there requires you to do some very specific things. You're not going to get there by time served. That is not the way it works in our industry. You don't get there by just hanging in there and eventually you'll get a pay raise, right? That's not the way it works in our industry. So quit banking on that if that's what you're banking on, right? Ask questions. Ask questions about how you can improve if this is your career, ask questions about how you can improve yourself. It's not a weakness to ask people about, listen, how can I make more money on my route? How can I become an assistant manager? How can I become a manager, right? How can I start my own company? It is not a weakness to ask questions. It's taking ownership of your own life. And that's what you want to do. So listen, in part 3, we're going to take all of this off the whiteboard, and we'll get a little bit more practical as well, right? I'll take you through kind of what it looks like for me on a real day, right? How you should handle, right, those things. How a high income earner in a route can handle the objections that kill almost every deal right before they even get started. Right, which are, that's too expensive, right? Or that's too much money. I know somebody will do it cheaper. Let me think about it, right? Which is everybody's favorite. And of course, the ever ready, I just need to talk to my spouse, right? So listen, if you've ever lost a job one of those lines and you didn't know what to say, then right, the next episode's for you. So I hope that you'll be here for that. So listen, I appreciate you being here for Pest Profits today, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Have a great night.